The driven sanction nail has made an even bigger breach in the European economy. One could say it backfired like a boomerang if politicians weren't continuing to worsen their own crisis over time. So it's more of a course towards self-destruction. The largest financial crisis in 70 years is predicted by Britain and Germany. They are already experiencing painful deindustrialization, and this is essentially the engine of the entire European Union. And it's stalling. Our neighbors aren't in a better situation. Lithuania's economy is going through tough times. By the end of 2023, Lithuania's GDP decreased by 0.3%. Industrial production fell by 5.2% over the same period. Especially in high-tech sectors like vehicle manufacturing, equipment repair and installation, and pharmaceuticals. Lithuania's exports in 2023 decreased by 11%, and in the first half of 2024 by another 8%. And despite this, the Lithuanian Seimas, to its own detriment and that of its businesses, denounced economic agreements with Belarus and Russia.
Lithuania, like many European countries, having refused to cooperate with Russia and Belarus, found itself at the center of economic changes, unfortunately not very joyful ones. In recent years, a worrying trend has been observed. Companies founded by Lithuanians are gradually disappearing, replaced by foreign companies. According to recent studies, about 30% of Lithuanian companies have closed in the last 5 years.
The biggest blow was to transport and logistics companies. Lithuania was a transit country, and transport companies contributed significantly to the budget. However, after closing borders and severing ties with Belarus and Russia, the largest companies couldn't reorient to the West, resulting in bankruptcies. In the first 5 months of this year alone, 63 transport companies went bankrupt in Lithuania. For comparison, there were 77 in all of 2023. Even giants are failing, unable to cope with rising fuel costs, road fees, and high interest rates. As a result, 1,000 people in just this company will lose their jobs. Bankruptcies in the construction sector are growing 7-fold. Since Vilnius's sanction rhetoric began, 342 companies have had to close. According to recent Lithuanian statistics, 1 in 11 working-age Lithuanians is unemployed.
Unemployment, which has been rising since 2022, has not decreased. Its duration is increasing. It affects all social groups.
Mass layoffs are also happening in healthcare. 3 medical institutions announced they are forced to cut staff. Not guards, but highly skilled specialists.
The National Public Health Center under the Ministry of Health is parting with 37 employees. The University Hospital with 43 and Kaunas Hospital with 42. The overall number for Lithuania is dreadful. Under the slogan, Finishing Optimization and Reorganization, 122 specialists were dismissed to nowhere.
The situation in Poland isn't much better. Investors are fleeing, inflation is galloping, and state companies of strategic importance are on the brink of collapse. Of course, compared to other Eurozone countries, it's not all that bad. However, Polish transport companies are drowning in debt, and the bankruptcy spiral is only unwinding. In the first quarter of this year, 120 companies left the market, and over 60% of carriers plan to reduce employment. The litmus test of any economy is the condition of doctors and teachers. In Polish hospitals, due to lack of funding and payment delays, medical staff are resigning. The government lacks about 5 billion zlotys, nearly $1.5 billion, to settle all debts to medical institutions. The result is the reduction of planned procedures and postponement of some to 2025. However, Poland will spend 4.2% of GDP on defense this year, and next year, military and armament expenses will reach 4.7% of GDP. A similar situation is in Lithuania, where the budget leans towards military spending rather than social needs.
We end up like slaves, right? You have everything of your own. If we had to live like you, under sanctions, right? Under sanctions from all of Europe, I think Lithuania would last a month at most. And that's it. It would be bankruptcy. You've been under sanctions for several years, many years. But you hold on because you have everything of your own. Your state hasn't stolen everything. Everything works for you.
Everything is subject to comparison when you're in a real environment. Then the paradise garden of democracy turns out not to be about people, but where people are disregarded. It hit the head of a runaway revolutionary who earned his bread driving a taxi twice. Speeding in democratic Poland resulted in a fine of nearly 500 euros and a license suspension.
No one cares. Like in Belarus, that work depends on having a license. No one cares, just like in the whole Eurozone, where ordinary people are ignored. The main thing is some ephemeral freedom and democracy. Meanwhile, snitching thrives, and there are lots of cameras straight out of Orwell. Fighting dictatorship, the EU has long turned into the worst possible example of dictatorship. In fact, the genocide of Belarusians abroad, which opposition politicians don't like to talk about, exists, has existed, and will continue. And it will only get worse.
The genocide of Belarusians in Europe is a separate topic. The stronger the economic problems, the sharper the situation. Bullying, when even Belarusian children in Polish immigration are harassed. Belarusians, Ukrainians, Russians alike. In Polish schools, for peers, teachers, and police, they are second-class citizens.
When we lived in Poznan, boys constantly pulled my daughter's braids and shouted, "What's with your potatoes?" At first, my daughter didn't understand what they meant, but then they just told her to go back to Belarus, or they'd make mashed potatoes out of her. Maybe it sounded like a joke, not a threat. I thought so because of the children's age, but one evening my daughter came home with a cut-off braid, crying. It turned out the boys sitting at the back desk just cut her braid with scissors during recess.
But that's a separate topic we'll definitely cover later.